Shir lamalot. Esaina el harim. Me'ayin yavo Ezri. Ezri. Me'im Adonai. Osei shamayim varetz. Oiten lamod raglecha al yanum shomrecha. Hine lo yanum velo yishan shomer Yisrael. Adonai shomrecha, Adonai tzilcha al yad yaminecha. Yomam hashemesh lo yakeka, ve'yareach balayla. Adonai yishmorcha mikol ra. Yishmor et nafshecha. Adonai yishmor tzedcha uvolecha me'ata ve'ad olam. The words of Psalm 121. I lift my eyes to the mountains. What is the source of my help? My help comes from Adonai, creator of heaven and earth. God will not let your foot give way, and your protector will not slumber. See, the protector of Israel neither slumbers nor sleeps. God is your guardian, your protection at your right hand. The sun will not strike you by day, nor the moon by night. And Adonai will guard your soul, your going and your coming, now and forever.
Eloheinu v'Elohei Avotenu, our God and God of all generations, thou who governest all things with infinite wisdom and mercy, and who guidest the destinies of all of humankind. As a parent have you loved us and showered your blessings upon us. Therefore we shall not murmur even when sorrow befalls us, but with humility and unfaltering trust we shall accept your decrees. In joy and in sorrow alike we praise your goodness and acknowledge your justice. We remember that we are but strangers upon earth. Like a shadow our life flees away. Help us, O God, so to walk in your sight, that when the few years of our earthly pilgrimage are ended, we may be ready to meet our end with tranquil mind. To thee we look for comfort and strength when one of our beloved is taken from us, and a link is broken in the chain of love which binds us together. Though we walk in the valley of the shadow of death, we shall fear no evil, for you are with us. Be praised, O eternal, our God, in all your dispensations. And sanctified be your name now and forevermore. In Jewish tradition, there is probably no piece of literature that is used more often. Can you hear me, Joni? Can you hear me? Okay, good. Doesn't matter about anybody else. It only matters whether Joni can hear me. That's all I care about. In our tradition, there is the 23rd Psalm, and it's used so often because it says, yea, though I walk through the valley of the shadow of death. But I learned a long time ago when I was a rabbinical student, that was well over 50 years ago. Well over 50 years ago. So when I was a rabbinical student, I learned from one of my professors that King David, who is the author of the book of Psalms, had something else in mind. He wasn't trying to talk about death. He was trying to give advice to mourners, not to get stuck in the valley of the shadow of death. You have to walk through it. And I believe that King David was correct. And I believe we use it as an admonition to those who are mourning. No matter when that mourning comes, no matter when that death comes, not to get stuck in that valley of the shadow of death. So I'm going to call upon the cantor to chant the words, and you may have them in front of you, and she will read the English with you as well.
Adonai roi lo echsar bin hot asher yarbitzeini al mei menuchot al mei menuchot yanaleni nafshi yeshovev yeshovev yancheni v'maglei tzedek yancheni v'maglei tzedek lemon shemo gam ki elech begitz amavet lo irara ki ata imadi shivtecha umishantecha heima yenachamuni taroch lefanai shulchan neged tzorerai dishanta vashemen roshi kosi revaya ach tov v'chesed yudefuni kol yemei chayai kol yemei chayai v'shavti b'vel Adonai le'orach yamim Adonai roi lo echsar Adonai roi lo echsar. We read in the English together, God is my shepherd, I shall not want. God makes me lie down in green pastures, leads me beside still waters, and restores my soul. You lead me in right paths for the sake of your name. And even when I walk in the valley of the shadow of death, I shall fear no evil, for you are with me. Your rod and your staff, they comfort me. You have set a table before me in the presence of my enemies. You have anointed my head with oil, my cup overflows. Surely goodness and mercy shall follow me all the days of my life, and I shall dwell in the house of God forever.
Want now to call upon Joe, who's going to represent the sons, and then Greg, who's going to represent the grandchildren. You're very welcome.
Rabbi Foster warned me not to do this. He said when he came over to talk to us 2 days ago, mourners shouldn't also be eulogists. It's too hard, and people go in thinking that they can do it, they'll be fine. How's that, Mom? And no? How's that? Is there a way to turn this on more? Yeah.
They're on. They're just going to pump them way high.
Okay, how's that? Better? Do I need to start over? Anyway, Rabbi Foster said it's not always a good idea for mourners, especially close family members, to give a eulogy. And I listened very carefully to what he said. He said people often, think they're going to be fine, they're going to be able to keep it together, and then 2 minutes into their eulogy, they fall apart, they lose it. And I thought, well, yeah, I guess I could do that too. I could lose it. But if I do, you know what? I'm okay with that. I'm okay with my feelings getting the better of my composure, because my feelings about Dad are overwhelming, and that may be how it is. So I hope you'll bear with me. I hope I can do this. I just want to tell a couple of anecdotes about Dad, and I think what I want to sort of reflect is the different dads, or the different Larrys, to those of you who are not his son or a grandchild. Dad was a brilliant trial lawyer before he became a law practitioner exclusively. He did, in his early career, he did everything. He did all kinds of law. And he did trial law. He specialized in personal injury law. And I remember going to see Dad try a case down at the City and County building. This would have been sometime around 1966, so Dad would have been about 37, and he was such a star. I can't believe, it was like watching a television show. It was like watching a courtroom drama with my dad as, I don't know, Jimmy Stewart, or he was just brilliant. And I sat back, pretty far back, in the courtroom. The trial lasted about a week. Dad won the case. And I was thrilled, and I guess that was the moment where he was my idol. I mean, it all sort of came together in my mind that Dad really was my idol. He was, well, I don't have to tell those of you who knew him that he was very handsome, especially, at 37. But actually, even in, I was looking at a picture of him and Mom taken 4 years ago, and she is still gorgeous. He was still good looking at 89. But anyway, he did this amazing job, and he was good looking. He was smart. He knew how to address the jury. He won the case, and Dad was, a kind of idol to many people. Especially when he was young. But when someone is your idol, I mean, of course, in Judaism, you're not supposed to have idols, as the rabbi and the cantor would remind us. It's not the greatest thing to have a person as an idol, even though that's how I felt about Dad, because there's a certain distance and between you and the person you idolize, and there's also a kind of, to be perfectly honest, there's a little bit of a fear. You're afraid sometimes of the person you idolize, and Dad was not scary, but he was a star. And to me, and I kind of couldn't approach him as just Dad because he was such a charismatic and brilliant and glamorous figure. So that was one Dad. That was maybe the younger Dad. But then I think something changed, both in Dad and in me, of course, as the years went on. And I'm remembering that after the funeral for Dad's dad, Grandpa Izzy. And Grandpa Izzy had been predeceased by his wife, Grandma Seal, by I think 2 years. So this would have been in 1996, I believe, when Grandpa Izzy died. And we were sitting around after the funeral. The family was, I think we were sitting around a dinner table, not an unusual place for this family to be. And Dad looked at us. His mother had died at 97, I think. His father had died at 93. Dad looked at us, and at this time, he himself was 67. He was a little bit younger than I am now, actually. And he said to us, "I'm an orphan now." And there was something very poignant about that. And that was, for me, the moment at which the sort of star dad, the idol dad, turned into Dad, my friend, because that was the moment where, and as you grow older, and I think some of you will experience this, as you grow older, you become closer to your parents in age in a certain way. Even though the age difference remains the same, you become, I became a senior citizen not so long ago, and so did some of my other brothers, some of my brothers, I should say. But when you start to become closer to them emotionally and experientially, you become, if you're lucky, you become their friend. And I moved from being, a kind of fan of Dad, one of his biggest fans, to being, I thought of him as a friend, and I think he thought of me as a friend. And I started to talk to, the friendship grew and grew. I think starting around the time Dad was about my age. And even before COVID hit, Dad had a bad fall, and he was in rehab for several weeks. And I started to call him and Mom every day. And I think that's when our friendship became really, really strongest. Once COVID arrived 3 years ago, I did talk to Mom and Dad every day. And, I thought of it at first as, well, this will help Mom and Dad. This will brighten their day because they'll be talking to their son. But you know what? It was also for me. I needed to talk to them. I needed to talk to Dad, my friend. I needed advice from him. Not just advice, the kind of advice he was very good at giving, like what to do if your oven is broken and the technician is there and you want to he said, watch the technician so that you can do it yourself the next time and you don't have to. And this was, I think, 3 weeks ago. We still don't have our oven fixed, and he was still giving me advice. Okay, has the technician come yet? Is the oven working yet? Make sure you keep an eye on the technician so you know how to do it yourself next time. And Dad actually, taught me how to live. Not, in the friendship phase of our relationship, he taught me how to live, how to grow up, how to be an adult. And he taught me as he grew more and more, weakened by Parkinson's. He taught me how to deal with that kind of, I have not had to deal, thank God, with that kind of adversity yet. But Dad taught me how to be brave. Dad had Parkinson's, but Parkinson's did not have him. at least until this last week, which was a very tough week for Dad. But he taught me how to grow up. And so I would say, Dad was my idol. He became my friend, and he is and always will be my hero. I love you, Dad. I always will. Thank you for being the best father in the world.
I'm even reminded at my grandfather's funeral that it's a bad idea to speak after Joe. Can you hear me, Buzz? Okay. I don't know which one of these is working. I'll speak up. Okay. See if I can make it as long as you did. So thank you all for being here. And these initial stages of mourning have been pretty hard because I'm still processing it. I'm in that sad phase and I miss him. But I know that soon I'll be able to remember Zaid for everything that he was to me and my brothers and everything that he still is within us. He was a family man. He was smart. He was witty. God, he was witty. And his smile and his laugh were infectious, truly. It wasn't more than a week ago that I asked him how he was doing. And he could barely talk, and he looked at me and said, 100%. Just a few days before that, the meds were making his head itch. Brian, my younger brother, asked him if he was itchy, and he said, what gave it away? Zaid and Buzz were always present through our childhoods, and my brother Doug put it perfectly, that we grew up thinking that was normal. But it was not normal to go mountain biking or road biking with your grandfather every weekend. It certainly was not normal that he was water skiing with me when I was in my 20s and he was in his early 80s. We used to have brunch every Sunday and still do many Sundays. And I still you can't go anywhere in Denver for brunch without having 5 people walk up to your table to say hi to Zaid. We'd spend a week or 2 in the summers driving the boat across the country and water skiing. He took me on a college tour on the East Coast. And I'll never forget how quickly we both wanted to leave Vermont that winter. I got to enjoy having him around until I was almost 35 years. And we're so lucky to have been able to spend that much time with our grandfather. So why does it hurt? It hurts because we loved him so much. Because we looked up to him in only a way that I hope future generations can look up to us. As a man who found interests in the interests of others. A man who truly cared about those around him and could always put a smile on everyone's face. Zaid passed away, this part's gonna be a little hard for me, sorry, but he passed away on Sunday as I pulled up to the Broncos game with my daughter Tatum. And those were his seats. And when I found out, just before walking in, I almost left the game. But I thought how special it'd be to take Tatum to her first game sitting in his seats. And those same seats were officially transferred to my dad only a day before my grandfather passed. I was joking with him that was by design in case Zaid still wanted to go. But we had so much fun, and that is absolutely what Zaid would have wanted. And he would not have wanted to see me up here sobbing, so I'm going to try and tell a few lighter stories that were memorable to me and my brothers. But Zaid took my brother Doug and I to Eilish Gardens amusement park when I was about 5 and Doug was about 3. And Doug popped out of the car with his blanket, which was a bit more than a blanket to Doug. It was his bobus, as he called it. And Doug really loved that bobus. But Zaid, I'm not sure, fully understood the relationship between Doug and the blanket and did not allow him to bring it into the amusement park. Zaid ended up spending the next 30 minutes walking us around the parking lot to calm Doug down. But Zaid was not short to forget, and he bought Doug a new bobus, which was gifted to him as a bar mitzvah gift. And I also just learned that Doug still has that. Us boys, Doug, Brian, Ben, and I used to spend a lot of time boating with Zaid, and having 2 kids with a third on the way right now, I can only imagine what those experiences were actually like from his perspective. But for us, they were some of the most amazing memories of our childhood, truly. We jump into what I now realize is just disgusting water in Chatfield Lake, and we'd make hot dogs on the George Foreman grill, which Zaid had to clarify was not the Gary Coleman grill to Doug when he tried to read cursive. And whether it was Doug or Brian in the water, Zaid would always make them say, "Hit it," twice before he'd start driving. I don't think he could believe how high-pitched Doug's voice was at the age of 12 or how low-pitched Brian's voice was at the age of 8. So he'd sit there laughing as he would go, "Hit it," or "hit it." So funny. I'll finish by saying that we're the luckiest grandkids to have a Zaid like we did. I'm honored that my son Carson, Lawrence Litvak, gets to carry his name, and I'm going to miss him deeply, but I'm proud to be a Litvak because of my grandfather, and I know that everyone who had a chance to have him in their lives, particularly as grandkids, will for the rest of our lives have the best parts of him shine bright. I love you, Zaid.
Well, since I know what to do with these, and now that they turned them up, you can hear me, right? Can you hear me, Joni? Can you hear me? Poet has written, "Birth is the beginning and death is a destination. But life itself is a journey, a going, a growing from stage to stage. From childhood to maturity and from youth to age. From innocence to awareness and from ignorance to knowing. From foolishness to discretion and then perhaps to wisdom. From weakness to strength or from strength to weakness, and often back again. From health to sickness and back we pray to health again. From offense to forgiveness, from loneliness to love. From joy to gratitude, from pain to compassion. From grief to understanding and from fear to faith. From defeat to defeat until looking backward or ahead. We see that victory lies not at some high place along the way, but in having made the journey stage by stage, a sacred pilgrimage. Birth is a beginning and death is a destination, but life itself is a journey, a sacred pilgrimage made stage by stage, from birth to death to life that is everlasting. Beloved family, dear friends, as we always say at moments like this, it's always difficult. Can you still hear me? Good. It's always difficult. No matter the circumstance, no matter the time, no matter how old or how young someone might be, it's always difficult. Moments like these, as I have probably said 1,000 times already over the years, they're bittersweet. Bitter because someone who was loved and loving is gone, but sweet because these last couple of years, these last months have been so difficult. And there's nothing easy about that. And so I'm sure that even for him, death came as a sweet reprieve from where he had been. Task for you as family, and I'm glad we have heard these beautiful, beautiful words spoken out of love and generosity of spirit. Task for you as family is to grieve. There's no question about that. You have to shed your tears, as many of you are doing right now. But really, it's to rob death of its ultimate victory. Have to walk through that valley of the shadow of death, can't get stuck in it. And when you walk through it and understand that there are processes to help us through that walking, we can come out at the end and really have a refined measure, not of what Larry was, but of what we can be in so many ways. Because the process of being here today is not just to come as you as friends, not just to come to express your condolences to a family. In so many ways, I think it's also to come here, learn from his life, so that we can lift up our own lives, so we can become better human beings, because there's some way that he touched us, some way that he tried in his own way, and each of us have those memories, and I want to share a couple of my own a little bit later. It won't be too long, I promise you. Nobody comes here to spend a day. I'm half a day maybe, but just kidding. Come here to smile because he smiled and he had a wonderful sense of humor. Even though his sense of humor from time to time, he loved dirty jokes. But I am not about to tell any of them. Yesterday, something happened to me that had never happened before, and it's about where we are in life. Yesterday, at two different funerals, bad words were used. I mean, really bad words were used. And I had to say at the time, that never happened to me before. But it's a new generation. And sometimes people will use bad words, not about the people, but using their own sense of humor about who they were. That's what we're here for, to remember Larry for who he was. But I promise, no dirty words. But it is a time for you to rob death of its ultimate victory by living life as long as it's yours to live. Because that is, in one way, what he would want for each of you. So what is our purpose here? Our purpose here, yes, is to remember him and the ways in which he lived in his highest moments, and how that helps us to become better human beings. Yes, and also it's to express our condolences to this family. But I want to say a word or two to the grandchildren and great-grandchildren. Great-grandchildren are a little young yet, but they're going to learn. One of the books that I've read recently is a book that's called The Brief History of the Dead. And the author tries to help us understand that we have different points of view about what's going to happen to us when we die. That's also something we have to contemplate at this moment. That's also a task of ours. And to understand that whatever it is that we believe personally, as long as we live by what it is that we believe, not trying to convince somebody else of what we believe, but living it ourselves, that it's important. But when people think about those who are gone, sometimes they think about them living on. And so the author of this book, The Brief History of the Dead, said, how long do people live in this other world, whatever that other world is? And he said, people live in this other world as long as there are people in this world who remember. Well, that's very strange. And then it's really not. With grandchildren and great-grandchildren, not only will be remember, but teach it to the next generation about who he was. Just like you talked about Grandpa, great-grandpa. It's important because that's how we give immortality to those that we love. And so the tasks for each of you as a family are to grieve and to wonder, to remember, and to emulate. Those are 4 easy words. And if you walk away from today thinking, oh, here's my task, that's good. Because that will help to give Larry a future and immortality. We learn to become better ourselves because of those that have gone before us. I want to talk just briefly about his legacy from my point of view. And I have a special point of view. You know, you talk about him being your dad and your friend. I'm sorry that his brother is not here today. May he find a full recovery. I saw him as he was a half generation older than me. Now you're doing your math. I'm 80. He was 94. It's okay. But I've been here a long time. I was 27 when I came here. As Joni reminded me the other day, you were a baby rabbi when you came here. I want to say something about my personal relationship with him. Because he was, in some ways, like a bigger brother to me. And just in one way, for sure. He had a great value system. Why was it a great value system? Because I agreed with him. or I should say he agreed with me. And he was very sensitive about, especially the high holidays, when I tended to give messages that didn't always sit comfortably with everybody in the congregation. Right? He always made sure that he came up to me afterwards and told me that was good. He was like an older sibling trying to give strength to a younger brother and trying to encourage. And I remember him for that. I don't think there was a year when he listened to what I had to say. It was always on Rosh Hashanah, not on Yom Kippur. I tried to stay away from that stuff on Yom Kippur, but I always talked about it on Rosh Hashanah. I can never remember a time when the two of you didn't come up to me afterwards and thank me. So I approved of his values like he approved of mine. And I felt grateful to have someone like him in my corner. It was also important for him to understand that he tried to create time for his children. And whether it was skiing behind a boat, interesting name for his boat, he called his boat conference. So that if somebody else called him, he said, he's in conference. It was good, smart. But he taught people. He taught people to ski, whether it was water skiing or snow skiing. And he created those opportunities for you as family to be together. He was not only open with you, but he was also open with your friends. He created opportunities for others in this family circle to become a part of the family circle. And now you're going like this. I mean, I don't care what everybody else is saying. You guys understand that. And it's important for we remember that, because that's how you give him that sense of immortality, by remembering those important ways in which he tried to live. So he devoted his life, and he was devoted to teaching, and he was devoted to this family. Joni, one doesn't live together with somebody else 71 years without joys, certainly joys, and sorrows, fulfillments and disappointments, because that's the way life is. But he was devoted to you and this family. And he always extended himself so that others could be brought in. He was determined. Determined in a lot of ways. He had lots of tenacity. How many of you are lawyers here? Oh my God, I didn't know there were that many. Now, I know that all of you are not Jewish, but the Jewish lawyers will understand. Either you became a doctor or an accountant or a lawyer. If you're afraid of blood, you became an accountant or a lawyer. If you didn't like numbers, you became a lawyer and tried to convince everybody else to do the other things. I say this on purpose. I have 2 lawyers in my family. 2 of my sons are lawyers. And one of them was here. He worked with Larry and Ron for a number of years, and thank God he left. He came to us and he said, after, I don't know, was he 2 or 3 years, 2 years, 3 years, something like that. David was in this family law practice. Came to us, his mother and I, and he said, I'm going to leave. He said, if I stay in this family practice, practicing family law, I'll never get married. So I was grateful that he left and succeeded in his own way. That's the way we have grandchildren too. But it's important that we have to understand that he took his practice of law so very seriously. And no matter what he did in law, he was serious about it. He was determined. Yeah, he had that great sense of humor. He had that charming personality. And together, you and Larry were a stunning couple. Always. And it was true. He liked to be with people. He was gregarious in that sense. Community was important to him, not just his own family, but the community in his own way. He was involved in B'nai B'rith, and he was involved in Carey. Most people don't even know what Carey is anymore. The Children's Asthma Research Institute and Hospital. And he was very much involved with that because it was a family tradition. It's important that we remember all of that, and he cared about this temple. And of course, those liberal values have always resonated with me, and he was optimistic as he could be and really cared. Yeah, he loved food, and he loved jazz, and he loved travel. And he loved his grandchildren, and they adored him. And that's important for us to remember about him. But the truth is, for him, no matter what else he did in life, it was this little group of people that meant the most to him. And Jonah, you were first on that list. Again, all these years that you've shared together, yes, I know that you feel relieved in some ways because he's not suffering anymore. But when you think back, it will also be such great sadness for you. And we can only hope and pray that these memories will serve you as a source of strength and inspiration. The same for you as his children and his grandchildren and the generations that are yet unborn. Help them to understand who he was in his highest moments. It is true that he was generational. And for him, he was the provider. He was that, Joni was the mother, and he was the dad. She had her responsibilities, and he had his. And so while I've read this poem at the end of eulogies very, very often, and I'm going to read it now, I think he would say, it's my job. It was my job as the dad to be the messenger. So the poet wrote, I am closer than ever before as the morning sun rises and throughout the busy day. I am with you. until the setting sun disappears on the horizon and we watch the day turn into night. I'm here. You may feel a faint breeze stir around your head while you slumber as I gently kiss your forehead goodnight. The stars that shine so brightly in my heavenly sky help me watch over you and keep you from harm. I am the wind in the trees and the song of a bird. I am moonbeams in a midnight sky and a glorious rainbow after the storm. I am morning dew and a freshly fallen snow. I'm a butterfly flying overhead and a puppy happily at play. I'm a smile on a stranger's face, a gentle touch, a warm embrace. Listen to the wind for my message of love. Watch the sun rise and set in the sky with me. Feel my essence encircle you with warm memories. Open your heart to know I am not gone. Reach deep into your soul. You'll find me. I am here. Have no fear. I am with you always. I believe in some way he would say, yeah, that's who I was. Adonai Natan v'Adonai Lakach. Yehi Shem Adonai mevarach me'atav yad olam. God has given. God has taken away. Praise be the name of God, now and forevermore, and let us all say together, Amen. And now, dear family and friends, may I ask you all please to rise as you are able for the traditional memorial prayer.
Shochen bamromim hamsei menucha nechona tachat kanfei hashchina im kedoshim odorim kezoar harakia mazhirim et nishmat Lezar ben Yitzchak v'Sara shalach le'olamo barachamim yostiru b'seiter kenafav le'olamim Beyitzror achayim et nishmato Adonai hu nachalato ve'yanuach b'shalom al mishkavo Venomar, Amen.
O God, full of compassion, eternal Spirit of the universe, grant perfect rest in your sheltering presence to Larry Litvak, who has entered into eternity. O God of mercy, let him find refuge in your eternal presence, and let his soul be bound up in the bond of eternal life. Be thou his possession, and may his repose ever be peace. And let us say together, Amen. You may be seated.
ladies and gentlemen, this does conclude our service here at Temple Emmanuel. We will have burial at Emmanuel Cemetery, and thereafter the family will welcome you back at their home until 3 o'clock today. Inside those handouts is the information about the Shiv and condolence. In addition, the family will be welcoming you from until 3 and then 6:30 to 8 o'clock. I don't know if the handouts say 6 to 8, but that has been changed to 6:30 to 8 o'clock. We'll ask everyone to remain in your places as we escort the family and the casket out. If you'd like to join us at the cemetery for interment, we're going to ask you to make your own way to the cemetery. And again, inside that pamphlet, you will have directions to Emmanuel Cemetery. You are welcome to follow the hearse. However, just as we need to follow all state and traffic laws, you need to follow all traffic laws. We'll ask you also to refrain from coming forward and trying to speak with the family. That will delay their process in getting to the cemetery. So if you run into them in the foyer or in their restroom, please allow them to do what they need to do so they can get back to their cars and to the cemetery. At this time, I'd like to invite the pallbearers forward.